Hello everyone, in this class we are going to start a new topic, that is user defined function in C programming language. So let's start with user defined function in C programming language. Now, first of all, what is a function? What is a function? A function is a set of instructions that we combine together to perform any particular task. That means this set of instructions will used to perform any particular task. Now, how to define this function in C programming? We already know that any function in C programming language has three components. What are those components? Any function have three components. Those are, number one is prototype, number two is definition, and then we have function call. Now, what is these things? Prototype means we are going to introduce the function with the system. Prototype means we are going to introduce the function with the system. Then function definition means here we combine all the instructions that are required to solve the problem for which we are going to implement the function. Clear? And here we introduce the function with the system. Here we define how the function will work, the operation, and function call. What does it means? Function call means whatever function we build or we implement, that function we need to use that function. Only at that time it will work. Until we use the function, whatever function we define, it will not work until we use that function. And to use the function, we have to call the function. Here we are going to use the function. Now come each components one by one, and based on this based on these three components, a function can be classified into any of three categories. What are those categories? Number one is library function. Number two is entry point function, and number three is user defined function. Now, what is library function? We already know about library function. What is a library function, or which function we call as library function? The function for which all these two things are already given. The functions for which all the prototype and function definitions are already given, all those functions are called library functions. Programmer, that means we only use those functions in our program as per our requirement. Clear? So those functions are called library functions. Now, what is entry point function? Entry point function is a special function from which a program starts its execution. Entry point function is the point from where system start execution of any program. Clear? Now, for entry point function, prototype is already given. Function definition, it is user requirement, and function call, this one is not required in case of entry point function, because system automatically start execution from entry point function, and there is only one entry point function given in any programming language. In case of C programming language, that function is main function. From where CPU start execution of our program. Clear? Now comes our main topic, that is user defined function. In case of user defined function, prototype, function definition, function call, all three things are the responsibility of user. That means into how we programmer, that means we need to introduce the function to the system, we need to define how the function will work, and we also need to call the function to use that particular function. Now we will see in case of user defined function how we can define the prototype, how we can define the function, how we can call the function. Clear? So let's start from for prototype, definition and function call for user defined function. One by one we will see how we can use these things. So let's start with prototype. Prototype is also called signature of function. Clear? Now what is the syntax for prototype of a function? The syntax look like return type, then function name, then argument. Clear? Next is semicolon we need. This is the syntax for function declaration or prototype. Clear? Next, for example, before example, what is return type? Look, this is the function name. It is user responsibility. User can give, or user or programmer can give any name as per they want for their functions. Clear? So function name comes from user. It is user responsibility to assign a name for any function. Now what is return type? Look, this function will work some task. Why this function we are going to implement? This function, we implement this function to perform some particular task. Clear? Now after perform the task, a function can return some value. But at the time of implement we don't know which value it will return, but we know which type of value it will return after completion of its task. That's why this return type defines the type of value that the function will return. Clear? And this argument, we will come to this argument part later. Clear? Now this is user responsibility and this is the return type. That means after perform the task for which we are implementing this function, which type of value it will return, we need to specify that particular type. Now look at here, there is a possibilities that a particular function is not going to return any value. There is a possibilities that a particular function which are not going to return any particular value after performing its task. At that time, what will be the return type? At that time, the return type will be void. That means no return value. And the return type will be int in case of integer and float in case of float type value. Then return type can be possible character, then double, as well as along with all this type of value, along with all these type of value, a function can also return a address of a variable, of a value. Clear? That means we also return the address. Clear? These are the basic types of return type that a function can return. a function can return. Clear? Now let's take an example for function. Example, first one is void, then let's say function name we give it as abc and then parenthesis. What does it mean? This means this is our function name, this is our return type, here is argument, no argument. Clear? Clear? Next. Next, take another example with some return type. Let's say int pqr, then parenthesis. What does it means? This means pqr is the function name, and after perform the function it will return one integer type value and no parameter or no argument. Clear? Now this is an example of function with no return type, and this is an example of a function with integer return type. Clear? So next thing, this is what the syntax of function prototype or signature of a function, and these are the two examples. Clear? Now that means we complete the prototype part of a function. Next component is function definition. Let's see how we can define the function. Function definition number 2. The syntax of function definition is, first of all, prototype as it is, it will come, and then function body. Function, here all the instructions come and then function body close. So this is called function body, where all the instructions comes here. Now look, why prototype comes here? Prototype means signature. That means for which function we are going to implement the body, we need to specify that thing, and any function is specified in the system with the help of its prototype or signature. Because of that reason, this prototype comes at the top of the function body. So what will be the actual syntax? The actual syntax will look like return type, then function name, then argument. This is our prototype part or signature part. That means this is our prototype, and then function body comes here. Within this function body, all the instructions combined, we will combine all the instructions here. Clear? And based on the return type, at the end of all the instruction, we will use the return statement, return then value. Clear? So this is our actual syntax for any function definition. Clear? So we already defined two prototype for two function. So let's create body for those function. The first function we create like void abc and then no argument. Within this is our function prototype. After that, function prototype or signature of the function. After that, function body will start. This is the start of function body, and this is the start of function body, and here function body ends, and this all the parts are called function body. Clear? Now come here. So this function will not return any particular value. So what will be the body inside? Let's say we implement this function to display a name only. Clear? So what instruction we need? We need only the display instruction, and in case of C programming language we can display anything with the help of printf library function. So we are going to use the printf function. Printf, let's say get 2021. So this is the function body for the function abc. Clear? Now let's implement the function body for the second function. What are the second function? Second function is pqr. So, and that function will return a value integer type, and then function name, that is pqr, and then function body start. And in this function, let's say this function is implement to add two number, and this function is implement to display a name. Clear? So let's say we have two integer a equal to 2, b equal to 5, and then we are going to add integer add equal to a plus b, and then we are going to return the value of add. So this is what the function definition for pqr function. Clear? So hope you understood the concept of function definition, how we are going to implement the function definition part. Clear? So next part is, we already defined the function, we already introduced the function. The next part is what? Next part is we need to use the function. So where we will use the function. Clear? So in generally we are going to use the function from main function. That means we are going to use the function inside main function. Why? Because main function is the part that will execute by the system. Whatever inside the main function, only that part will execute by the system. So whenever we need to call any function, in generally we call that particular function from main function. There are some other exceptions also. We will learn all those exceptions in later part of this tutorial series. Clear? So the next part is function call. The third part is function call. That means here we are going to use of function. Now the syntax is just function name, then parenthesis, and within this parenthesis argument. Clear? This is our syntax for function call. Now from where we will call this particular function? From inside the main function. Clear? So example, this is our main function, and inside main function we are going to use both of this function. That means we are going to call both of this function. The first function is abc, so we can call abc function like that, and the second function is pqr, so again we can call pqr function like that. And there may be some other instructions also inside the main function. Clear? That will depends on our problem for which we are going to write the program. Clear? So this is how we can call the function. So we learn how we can define a function, how we can introduce the function with the system, and then how we can call the function. Now let's take an example and see how all those things work combinedly. Clear? Next. So let's start with the first part. The first part is we write a function to display a name. So we will write the whole program is using function, and then we will explain how this function will execute by the system, or how the system will execute this particular program. So let's start. First of all, we need to introduce the function. That means void abc, then parenthesis, and then void main. Inside main we will call this particular function, that is abc, and then we need to define the function. Where we will define the function? Below the main function. So signature comes first. Signature means void abc, and then function body will start. Inside the function body, what we are going to use? We are going to use printf function. Printf get 2021. So this is our program. Now how system will execute the program? Look, execution of program. Now look, the program starts execution from main function. That means the program start execution from here and comes to the ABC part. Now what happen? Whenever system finds an instruction, that is function call. This is our function call. What system will do? System will first check whether this particular function is implemented or not, and to do that thing, system will check all the instructions given below the function call instruction. Not below, that is above the function instruction, because whatever below, that thing is not yet known by the system, but whatever the above of the function call, that thing is already known by the system. Clear? So whenever it encounter this particular instruction, it check all the instruction till here, and it gets here that this function is defined as void abc. That means it is a user defined function. So system get to know that this is a user defined function. On which basis system decide that this is a user defined function? Based on this particular prototype. Clear? And that's why we need to specify the prototype at the above, or before we use the function, or before we call the function. Before we call the function, we have to define or introduce, we have to introduce the function. Clear? So here system gets information about this function, and then system will search where this function is located. Look at here, this function is located here. That means whenever system encounter this function, first it will check what abc is. Now for that, system will check all the instructions above of this particular instruction in the program, and it gets this particular instructions, and it get to know that this function is a user defined function. And after that, whenever it gets the information about this function, and then it will check for the definition part of the function. So where is the definition part of this particular function? The definition part is given here. Now system comes here and execute this particular instruction, and whenever system execute this particular instruction, in the output we get the string get 2021. Clear? And after execution of this particular instruction, system encounters this particular closing brace. And what does it mean? This means this particular function definition ends here, and whenever system gets this particular closing brace, it backs to the calling location from where this function is called. At that particular location the control backs. Clear? And then again start the execution from there. Clear? So what is the next instruction? Next instruction here is closing brace. That means now the execution ends. Execution of program ends here. Clear? So this is the sequence how the program executes whenever any user defined function is given in the program. Clear? So again we will discuss the sequence of the execution of user defined function. Look, system starts execution of the program from main function, that is entry point function. So here the entry point function is main, so system starts execution from here and first encounter the library function ABC, and whenever it gets any instruction, it will check what it is, because it is not defined inside the function, inside the library. So system have to know what is this, and for that it will check all the instructions above this particular instructions, and it encounter this particular introduction of this library of this user defined function, and whenever it gets this instruction, system knows that this is a user defined function, and after that only it will go for the function definition and control jump from this main function to ABC function, execute this ABC function, control back to the